Hello, hello, hello. My name is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and this is the Checkup. I just want to thank you and welcome you back to my podcast. This is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and it is a good day to get a checkup. That is for sure. So no matter how you're listening, through recoveryguy.org or the major podcast channels, or you know me through Instagram or my Facebook page, we're just excited you're here, and we look forward to today's podcast. I don't know if you had opportunity to listen to Tuesday. It was called Healing While Hurting, and I was counting today, and today I think marks 85 podcasts for us. We have been trying to stay faithful with 2 fresh podcasts every week since the first week in August, and we really appreciate your response and your participation, and I hope today is no different. So whether you're new or relatively new to Recovery Guy Podcast, welcome. We are glad you're here. Today's topic is called How We Heal, right? So it's a healing week because of the passing of my mom. And so I've been very reflective in there and how we sort of associate those things with our recovery and our new way of living. And so today's podcast, I'm going to be using some thoughts and practices by my dear friend Suzy. Suzy and I had met through Instagram, and it was really surrounding a life challenge she was having with the person in her life. And unfortunately, the opportunity with this person didn't prove productive at the time, but out of it came the relationship Laura and I have with Suzy. And we're very, very grateful for that. As a matter of fact, if you want to learn a little bit more about Suzy, you might want to go back to my podcast from, I think the date was August 8th, something to that effect. And Suzy was actually our third podcast. And so I think you'll enjoy it. You'll find a little bit more about her story, and as I shared some thoughts from her, and if you want to follow her on Instagram, great story of recovery, of hope and wellness, and just remaining positive and walking in the light in some very dark and challenging times. Hey, before we get into that, though, I'm going to share some random yet relevant thoughts with you, just to sort of get us going, and we can apply these to healing. It's just a way of thinking in terms of this new life we're looking to elevate every single day, which I love because it's a relative term. I'm not going to be where other people are at, and I don't gauge myself by where they're at, no matter where they're at on the timeline of recovery, we're all in the same timeline. So whether you're new or relatively new to recovery, or whether you've been doing it either longer or more effectively than I have in my years, there is no difference, because as long as we're comfortable with where we're at, and I'm not saying comfortable by making excuses for why things aren't better, we call that denial or minimization or rationalization, but really comfortable with saying, this is all right. I kind of like this right here. You know that feeling? You know what I'm talking about, where you're working hard, you're putting in the work, you're putting in the effort, you're praying, you're sharing, you're caring, you're doing positive things for yourself in your life, and say, you know what? I'm pretty good right here, and I appreciate everything that's been given to me. So as many of you know, I'm kind of like a walking cliche, right? You can't be around as many years as others and I have been around without picking up things along the way. So I'm going to share some random thoughts with you, and we're going to move that into how we heal and cover some points by Suzy. And as always, don't worry if you're driving or it's not convenient to jot these down. I always try to throw most pertinent points into the description, so make sure you check out there as well. So here's the first thing I thought of, and I won't spend time elaborating. I'll just mention them and go on to the next thing. It doesn't matter where we start. It matters where we end up. Since this is about the journey, not the destination, where I desire to end up is on the successful end of another day. Speaking of success, success is a relative term usually defined by the person experiencing their day. Where I end up today will set the stage for where I start tomorrow. Where I start tomorrow will help determine where I end up tomorrow, and so on, and so on, and so on. I think most importantly through here is never lose sight of where we are at. Never lose sight of where you're at. Because if I don't know where I'm at, I don't know what my starting point is. And as Stephen Covey talks about in Paradigms and that mental map, even with a positive mental attitude, if I don't know where I'm starting, it's going to be near impossible to get where I need to go. Right? If I said, I want you to go to Chicago, and you would say, okay. And I'd say, well, show me how you would get there. And I think a relevant question would be, where am I starting from? I mean, wouldn't you ask that question? Because it doesn't matter where you're going. Where are you starting from? Right? So where you're starting from is just as important, even more so, than where you're going. Although we don't want that to be random. So one of my podcasts was about not being able to live in the problem while attempting to apply a solution. And this can also be a darker path that we go down. It can certainly lead to a darker path. Contradiction often does. So here's some basic thoughts on that. And once again, they'll be in the notes. And this is driven off the Gandhi quote, I can't live in the problem and live in the solution at the same time. I must decide where I will live. We can't become who we need to be while staying the way we are. And to some of you, these things might sound a little facetious or rudimentary or, oh gosh, Robert, I knew that. Well, and that's fine. I hope you're living that, not just saying you know that. And I think as part of the checkup, one of the things that we like to do is just sort of examine ourselves. Where are we at on that? Am I subtly resistant to change, but saying I'm progressive? And then I wonder why I'm not achieving the things that I would like to achieve in the timeline or to the degree that I would like to achieve them. I love what Zig Ziglar said, and I'm not sure where Ziggy got it from, but failure is an event, not a person. And it is through our failure in circumstances or situations that we use as a guideline to moving forward toward our success. Remember, failure is an event, not a person. If you show me a person who doesn't have a long list of failures, I'll show you a person who probably hasn't been trying hard enough, long enough, or smart enough, because some of the greatest things that I've learned along the way had been part of the mistakes or how I didn't play it out correctly. Men and women are limited by the size of their hope. Don't limit your hope. If there is no hope, there is no future. Remember that. Also, and for those of us who are in the service industry, my daughter Carol's a teacher, and I know this is really relevant with her students, but it's easier to work with a person or a student who is already moving than it is for a person who's decided to stay in one place. And that's just true. That's even with the law of motion, right? If you're trying to push a very heavy object, a car that's stalled, in the beginning, because there's so much weight and mass and it's stopped, it's very difficult. And you might even be encouraged to just leave it there because it's just so heavy to push. But if that vehicle is moving, it becomes much easier to continue it moving. Just a thought. Passion produces satisfaction. We do it because we live it. And we live it because we love it. So passion produces satisfaction. Now, before we get into what Suzy says, and I know you're going to like these 5 points regarding how we heal. So let's define the word heal. So according to Webster's, the definition of heal, and I think you're going to like these a lot. I love how to apply them into the 4 areas of my life, the 4 dimensions, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, the physical, and the emotional. All of those areas need to be addressed, the emotional, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. I need healing in. So to make free from injury or disease, isn't that good? To make free from injury or disease is healing. And that definition is probably leaning towards the medical, but emotionally we're injured. Disease is just a dis-ease. We're not comfortable. We need to break free from that uncomfortability. And then it says to make sound or whole. Don't you like that? Don't you want to be whole? Well, our motto here at Recovery Guy is from broken to whole, right? And if you've seen the heart with the piece of it missing there, we all want to become whole, become aligned, being fulfilled, being complete in our life, right? We ought to be, because not wanting to be that, life can be challenging, and it's impossible if you're not pedaling, right? It's actually because this thing called gravity, we don't pedal uphill. So we want to be working on ways to make ourselves whole and to refining that wholeness. The next one is to make well again, to restore to health. And again, health can be whatever you want it to be. Mental health. During this whole coronavirus thing, with people keeping indoors, I do Zoom meetings with 6 different facilities over the week, and I think I'm looking to be doing one back in the prisons if they open up that soon. But there is a need to get in there and get close and to restore to a health and to communicate. And so often in mental health, we haven't had that opportunity. And you can really sense the loneliness in so many people who are not necessarily trapped, but they are. And we need to do an outreach and understand that mental health is a big thing. So the next one is to cause or to cause to being an overcomer, to cause that to happening is to heal. To patch up or correct. I like that. I need to make corrections on a regular basis. It's really why I do my 10-step, right? I'm always searching my heart. I'm always going to the Lord in prayer, especially at the end of my day, because I might need to heal something, to correct something, to go back in and put a little salve on it and a little bandage or covering on it so it doesn't get infected again, right? To use that medical terminology and to use that as a metaphor. I love the last one here, to restore to original purity or integrity. Don't you like that? To restore to original purity or integrity. So that's the word heal. And how we heal, is relative. Some of the points that I had made on Tuesday's podcast, healing while hurting, and then with Suzy. It's not that you do what we do, but do something if you're not already. And if you're like me and Suzy and Angie and countless others and Chris and others in recovery, Chaz and Tess and my circle, we're always looking to incorporate things, right? To sort of grow out as we dig deep. That way we're very broad and we're entertaining different ideas, even outside of your normal spiritual realm or educational realm, because there's so many things out there that we don't have to, think the whole pie is great. But you know what? If we can just take a piece and see how that feels, we can leave the rest of the pie. We can just take a small nugget of a larger presentation and pull that truth out of it and apply it. Again, contempt prior to investigation is a bar against all information and will lead to everlasting ignorance. So here goes. The 5 things that Suzy is talking about. And if you want Suzy to elaborate on these things, just go hit her at Suzy MD on Instagram and say, hey, I heard Robert's podcast. Here are the things. How do I do that? Because if you're looking to support family who suffer from behavioral and addictive challenges, Suzy, you should want Suzy as your friend, and just go follow her and ask her about these things. So the first thing that Suzy says is keep working my program. Keep working my program. I love it. There's 2 implications there. Number 1, she has a program, right? A target, a goal, and she's keeping working it. Suzy will be the first one to tell you her recovered life is a journey. So many of us know that is not a destination. We never arrive, even though we're brought to many beautiful plateaus and mesas along the way. We never arrive. We keep going, right? And working a program, you got to have a plan. You can't do this willy-nilly. It's impossible. Again, we'll end up being a walking contradiction to us, right? There was a great story that Zig Ziglar told about the necessity to have a program or goals, right? Or a target. And so Zig was comparing himself. There's this world famous archer, and I forget his name. That's not relevant. So Zig is saying that this archer, they got Robin Hood from, and really quite famous in movies. But he was such a world-class archer that he could no longer compete because no one would compete against him. He was that good. So Zig Ziglar tells this story in one of his motivational talks about, he said, I'm so good at teaching and training, I could teach anyone how to out-arch Sir Hillary or whatever his name is. And then he pauses. And he said, providing I can put a blindfold on him, spin him around 4 or 5 times before he has an opportunity to shoot, right? Or to fire his arrow. And he says that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Because how can you hit a target you can't see? And Zig comes back and says, the better question is, how can you hit a target you don't even have? So I think it's really significant that Suzy starts out with saying, I have a program. I have a plan. And not only do I have a plan, but I work it day in and day out. I mean, Suzy's a single mom. She's got 3 teenagers. So, she has to have a plan, right? And a program that she's working. Plus, she's a medical professional. She's got an office and a business that she runs. So she's probably got a mission statement for each one of those. But she works a program for her so she can sustain and overcome the challenges of that day and heal along the way, because she was pretty harmed. It changed the course of much of her life through what she went through. And this is the first thing that she talks about and how she heals. The next one, I really appreciate this, and I shared it on Tuesday, and those of us in recovery, the 12-step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of this step, we tried to carry message to other alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Sharing is caring, and that's Suzy's next point. She doesn't just share, okay? So she doesn't wait for someone to say, hey, Suzy, can you help me? She looks for opportunities to share. I know she looks for them through her friend network. I know she looks for them through social media. I know she looks at them from her meetings. I know she looks at them in the life of the children that her teenagers hang out with, or maybe even their families. Certainly the assistants and her staff at her practice. So I know she's looking for opportunity. And if you chatted with Suzy and talked to Suzy, you would never know she went through this rather devastating challenge that is ongoing. But she knows the value of working her program is sharing her joy with other people. So that's number 2 on her list. I love the next one. It could have gone on 2 lines, but I think one leads to another. She says she remains vulnerable and authentic. What a great combination. I think of those things, but I'm going to have to start looking at that and seeing how I apply those 2 things like mercy and grace, or salt and pepper, right? To be vulnerable means that you can see me, right? You can see who I am. I am sensitive. I'm not guarded. And this is what's strange. She's not being guarded. She's vulnerable. She's leaving herself open to life experience in light of being harmed so greatly. And that allows her to be authentic. I love that combination. But to be vulnerable, remain vulnerable. See, again, the implication is she became vulnerable. Just like she worked a program, she's keeping working it because she has working it. It's not just something she thought of when I asked her for her thoughts. But she remains vulnerable, which means she got vulnerable, which is a very scary place to be, because being vulnerable means I'm trusting. And being authentic means you're going to see me for who I am. And that can even lead us to be more vulnerable. So I love point number 3. She, in number 4, says to be intentional about keeping my message consistent. Boy, keeping the message consistent, being intentional. I love that word. So as Jay Shetty would say with his podcast, on purpose. So on purpose or intentionally, she keeps her message consistent. Not only the message she receives through her spiritual process and meditation and prayer, but the message that she sends out. She wants it to be consistent. And not only just consistent, I'm going to paraphrase and put words in her mouth here, but I know her enough and I think I know where she would go. Not only consistent with what she says and what she believes, but how does that translate into her physical life, how other people see her, going back to that vulnerable and authentic in number 3, right? Here, she is keeping that message consistent. So she's not just saying this is what I do, this is how I do it, and this is why I do it. She's saying, watch me, right? Because it's like love, right? Love is a noun. It's a great noun. But more powerfully, love is a verb. Because I can tell you I love you, but when I show you I love you, now that gives life to the noun. That's what verbs do. They're action. You say on one thing, I'm kind, but then we need to act kind. I might say I care, but then I need to be caring, right? All the things that noun then translates into a verb or activity to substantiate. So someone doesn't look at me and say, well, gee, I know this is what you're saying, but this is what I see. You must be a hypocrite, right? So no, I would be much rather be intentional to study and to on purpose keep my message consistent, keep that saw sharpened on a regular basis. The next thing is just do it. Number 5, how simple is that? Just do it. And I love the simplicity there. So thank you for that, Suzy. I love that because just doing it, we do it because it's the right thing to do. The Bible says to obey is better than sacrifice. I guarantee you, and for those of us who are in the helping profession, or you have children you're trying to raise and homeschool now because the schools are closed, and you're on your job and other areas of your life and ministry of service. Sometimes, I don't feel like it. Do you ever feel that way? I don't have the emotional investment for the day. I want to do something else. I don't want to mow my lawn. I don't want to do a lot of things, right? But I just do it. Not because I feel like it, although it's a lot more fun to feel it and do it than to not feel it and do it. But the most important thing is just do it. Just get out there. Just say, I'm going to heal. Just say, I'm going to overcome those things. Because one of the first rules in understanding the difference between negative self-talk and positive self-talk is no matter what I say to you until you believe it, it's not true. So we just sort of do it, not whether or not we're so into it for the day, but we know that it's the right thing to do. And what's really cool about this, between working the program and looking for opportunities, remaining vulnerable and authentic, being intentional about keeping our message consistent, we just do it. We don't do it because we think we're better. We don't do it because we think we're worse. We don't do it because we're happy. We don't do it because we're sad. We just do it because doing these things is how we heal. And I hope it's how you heal. Some combination of these things. Maybe you don't have a plan to heal. Maybe you want to adopt these. And again, I'll put them in the notes. Jot them down, write them down, put them on your mirror. Keep them, written on the tablets of your mind, like the Jewish custom of taking a booklet and putting it on and wrapping and tying it around their forehead. So it's always in front of them. It's always right there before them. We can get hurt or harmed accidentally. Because again, sometimes life happens. Life is going to do what life is going to do. Again, going back to Tuesday's podcast, we don't want to manufacture our own misery, right? So if we are harmed, it certainly was without our permission or our active participation, because sometimes life just says, your turn is up. One of the things that my mom would say, she would hear stories and someone would say, well, why me? My mom would say that. when she would see other things going on and realize that other people were more challenged with her. And some people would say, in that, well, why me, Lord? Why do I have to go through this? And my mom would say, why not me? Who am I to be excluded from life's challenges? Now, obviously, none of us welcome them and have a sign up and say, want the universe to come and deal us a bad hand. But sometimes it happens. We get harmed or hurt accidentally. But how we heal is defined by our systematic approach to living. Did you know that? We can be harmed or hurt accidentally. But how we heal is a systematic approach to living. Just like the things Suzy said, keep working the program, looking for opportunities, remain vulnerable and authentic, being intentional about her message being consistent, and just doing it. That is a very systematic approach to living. And I love it. Don't you? It's how we heal. And healing is a wonderful thing. There will always be something we are healing from. Don't wait for small hurts to pile up. Let's deal with them one hurt at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. As Will would say, if we clear away the wreckage of our present, it doesn't become the wreckage of our past. So if we identify hurts in our life, things that we need to heal from, let's just heal. Let's just create a systematic approach to healing that we can go from broken to whole. Thank you so much for joining us on recoveryguide.org or the podcast channels or any other social media way that you get to us. We are excited you are here. As always, my name is Robert, and I am the Recovery Guy.